Welcome back to the OU Sports Podcast. Colton Sulley, Louis Raser, Jason Batacao. Let's get into it, guys. Wild game in Norman Saturday night. Talked a lot about the offense last week. Well, they kind of went crazy. Put up 59 points. Jeff Lebby. Not hearing a lot of fans, go after him this week, but let's get into that. Dylan Gabriel, 8 touchdowns, a school record. Louis, what did you think of the offense's overall play? And especially Dylan.
They looked unstoppable. It looks like when OU is playing at their full potential, and when Jeff Lebby's on, when Dylan Gabriel's firing, you have Drake Stoops, who's, Mr. Reliable. When everything's connecting, and the offensive line, which is a piece that we haven't really touched on too much, but they looked really in sync, probably more in sync than they've looked all season, honestly, except for maybe against Texas. But when you have all those pieces firing, this is a dangerous offense. I'm going to let you guys take it away because I'm really only here to talk about the fight, but go ahead.
Gavin Sawchuk also, in my eyes, he's really cemented himself the last 2 weeks as their number one running back. We saw, obviously, you mentioned it, Drake Stoops went off. Dylan looked the best he's looked all year to me. He missed a couple throws early, and we were like, man, this is going to be another one of those type of games. But talking to him last night and talking to Lebby after the game, I think the big key to the offense's success was just cleaning up those pre-snap penalties and cleaning up a lot of the mistakes that we saw them have against Kansas and Oklahoma State. But, Jason, what was your take on OU's offensive firepower on Saturday?
Looked pretty good. 8 touchdowns, 3 from Drake Stoops. It was the Dylan Gabriel show in my book. Gavin Sawchuk looked as explosive as he did in that Florida State game, which that bodes really well for OU in this final stretch of games, whether or not they make the Big 12 championship or not. Tiebreaker's kind of weird. But yeah, it was pretty good. It was kind of a snooze fest towards the end because just OU was a barn burner.
Got Davis Bevel in.
Yeah, Lewis was feeling a little sleepy towards the end of the game. I think I counted him yawning like 10 times. It was pretty crazy. More crazy than the score, actually. But, yeah, OU's offense was really, really good, and all the things that you guys mentioned. So, yeah.
Guys, we've talked the last 2-3 weeks, seems like a month, about Jeff Lebby and how this offense had no identity all season long. Does Saturday night, I know West Virginia's not very good. It was at home. The defense was playing, pretty well. Everything was clicking. No undisciplined penalties other than the fight, which we'll get to later. But does Saturday night change your opinion at all about this offense or Jeff Lebby's, philosophy as a whole?
No, not one bit.
It doesn't make me think that they have an identity. I still think they don't. And maybe it's just like kind of that thing where we need to see more. Like they need to go out against BYU and crush them because that's not a very good team. Need to finish strong against TCU because obviously they have their flaws. But no, it doesn't change too much. And it's week 10, so like it can't really change that much, especially when you had 2 pretty awful performances against Kansas and Oklahoma State where you shot yourself in the shoe. Yeah. Shot yourself in the shoe. Shot yourself in the foot multiple times. But yeah, it doesn't change that much. It just like it made me realize kind of the potential that the offense has when everything is clicking. It's a good thing I'm not sitting next to him because I would hurt him. But
is that a podcast threat?
It is.
I think you're touching on it.
I'll go McCade Matoyer on you.
I think you're touching on it there. I don't know if it changes my mindset about Lebby in this offense, but I do think when everything's clicking, I think this is could be a really good offense when Dylan Gabriel is playing like we all know he can play. And when everything's clicking, like I just said, when Drake Stoops, you have a number one wide receiver who you can go to in any scenario is on. You have a running back that's really on. You finally found that guy. And then, like you said, Lewis, when the offensive line, all 5 linemen are seemingly on the same page. We heard McCade last night talking about how Jacob Sexton, his roommate, them two beside each other on Saturday was like a whole new ball game, even though Tyler Guyton, who is projected to be a first-round pick, just that small of a difference. And then Caden Green's emergence as well. The offensive line was just really humming. And I think with all those things, combined with no undisciplined penalties, no false starts, like that, I think that this offense can be really good. We've seen the national ranks, like They're highly ranked in a lot of categories. However, I still think that Jeff Lebby has his flaws, as does every coach. But it doesn't really change my opinion with all the injuries and with all the mess that this season has been offensively. I agree with you. I don't think the identity's fixed just because they blew out a bad West Virginia team.
Yeah, I mean, I just even look back to like last year. Like I think that the what would you call it? The resume that he has at OU so far has not outweighed the good areas that we've seen from Lebby. I mean, last year's offense was pretty terrible at points and inconsistent and sort of, I mean, obviously this offense this year is way better than last year's, but still you kind of see the same tendencies of, not being able to execute in those late game situations, kind of like they did against Oklahoma State and Kansas. And I just think that if that continues, OU's offense is just going to continue to have this weird, like, I wouldn't say like, it just feels like they're on like a teeter-totter, and they teeter towards the good some weeks, and then they're just like there's a brick on the other side of the teeter-totter, and they're just terrible.
Well, I think the other brick is the undisciplined stuff, the pre-snap penalties, the injuries.
Yeah, but a lot of it
seemed like on Saturday everything went right, and I think what you're getting to is like they don't have an ability. This offense isn't good enough to, when those things are going wrong, go down and get points like that drive against Kansas. They did against Texas for some reason.
I think it's
against
because
Kansas and Oklahoma State, both drives they just kind of sputtered and really couldn't do anything there at the end.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like, I think Dylan Gabriel is the identity of this offense, and a lot of times they just, for whatever reason, Lebby has like, I'm going to run the ball this week and feed, Gavin Sawchuk or Javante Barnes or Tawi Walker or Marcus Major for however long, and obviously getting the run game involved. But like, I think just letting Dylan Gabriel, OU's had most success when they just let Dylan Gabriel be Dylan Gabriel and go out there and just run the ball freely, just throw it to whoever. I mean, that's my opinion. And maybe that's a short-sighted way of viewing it, but I mean, I think it needs to be the same thing next year. Just let Jackson Arnold go do his thing. But I don't know. Obviously, a great offensive performance against West Virginia, but it doesn't change how I feel about Jeff Lebby's play calling on the outside looking in.
Anything else we should talk about regarding Jeff Lebby and the offense?
No, I'm ready to get to the good stuff, man.
All right, well, let's get to a couple of young players that have really stepped up. Jaren Kanak did not start against West Virginia. It was instead Kip Lewis. Saw a lot of Kobe McKenzie as we have the last few weeks. We've seen a lot of young players like Jacoby Johnson or Robert Spears Jennings or those types.
Nick Anderson. Even.
Well, I forgot to say that when we were talking about the offense. The two things that I took away from Saturday against West Virginia is, number one, Dylan Gabriel can be really good when everything's clicking. Three things, I guess. Number two, give Gavin Sawchuk the ball more. And number three, give Nick Anderson the ball more.
Yeah,
but
kid's so good.
That's just aside the point. But what do we think, just specifically the linebackers? I mean, what did we make of that scenario on Saturday? I mean, we talked about it a little last week about how Kip Jaren kind of got benched a little bit against Bedlam or in Bedlam. What did you think of the switch from Stutzman to Kip switching positions and then Kip getting the start over Jaren?
Well, I thought it worked out well, obviously, and I think Kip's kind of in. I think he's better for the role, honestly, with the way that Jaren's been playing really ever since Texas. I mean,
the whole season.
Well, I think he was pretty
really
good early on.
Yeah.
But Kip recently has really been a standout, and you didn't really expect it because the linebackers, like first 3-4 weeks of the season, that was the strong suit really of this team.
Yeah.
Like they were the ones holding it down, and obviously Danny Stutzman still is, and he's a huge reason why they lost against Kansas and against Oklahoma State. But Kip Lewis stepping in there, if you can get that for the rest of the way, that's huge.
Especially with us not knowing like Dason's status.
Definitely, yeah. And even Kobe McKenzie has really, really stepped up.
For sure.
Yeah. I think Kip Lewis was fantastic. There were a couple plays where I keyed in on him and he's really good.
He's a baller, man.
Yeah, he's really good in space. Like, I think against Oklahoma State, I would have liked to see him pressing to get in the backfield more. But, I mean, just as a pure tackler and a pure talent in the linebacker position. I mean, it feels like he knows where he's going. You know, he's just very sharp and very athletic. Obviously, there's points where, you know, even I think Kobe McKenzie talked about it like a week ago, where like, you know, there's points where he doesn't know his keys, and that was the Oklahoma State game. He was without Danny Stutzman, who knows all of Brent Venables' keys, but I think it bodes well for OU's future, especially if Danny Stutzman stays around next year in the SEC. I don't know if he will or not. We'll see what happens, but I think that's OU's linebacking core for the future. Kobe McKenzie, obviously
Sammy Omosigo.
Omosigo is really good. I think Jaron will probably stick around. I think he really loves Brent, but I think Kip Lewis is really good, like really good. Like,
let's get to the exciting part of the pod, as you guys were talking about.
All right.
There was, you know, as uneventful. Jason used the word uneventful for the fourth quarter. There was a little party in the end zone after one of Drake Stoops' touchdowns. He got rocked by a West Virginia defensive back. Lewis, what did you see from your vantage point of McCade Matauer from the press box, and what led to his ejection?
Well, he's going to have his teammates back, obviously. I mean, obviously, everybody saw the play. Everybody knows what happened. And McCade apologized for it, just like some other guys, you know, saying, like, that's not who we are or whatever. But, like, at the end of the day, I don't think it's the worst team
I don't
thing.
think...
For a team that's, like, crumbling over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You were in the college football playoff, in the heart of the conversation 3 weeks ago. Now you're, like, vying to get into a New Year's Six Bowl, if that. Like, it's not the worst thing to show, like, we got each other's back. We're in this together. And, like, McCade obviously is going to apologize. He has to apologize. And it's really fortunate for OU that he didn't get suspended for the first half against BYU.
I'm so confused about that.
I am too.
So
I
weird.
thought that was a rule, but maybe, like,
maybe
who knows. But I think it's a good thing. I mean, Dylan Gabriel came racing over there. I don't think I've seen him run that fast.
He was the first one.
Him and Jalil
really was over there.
Yeah.
And then McCade carrying it on.
I was surprised there weren't as many flags on both sides.
Well, the initial play, there were none.
Yeah.
It was targeting originally,
McCade
and then they took
got
that
it for
away.
Pushing, and then for
John afterwards. Yeah.
I thought it was crazy. I was like,
he did. McCade talked to McCade for a while last night, and after his big apology and stuff, you know, he did say getting the little fist bump from President Harris kind of lifted all the weight off of his shoulders, and he said he was a little anxious sitting in the locker room after, you know, not wanting to miss the first half against BYU and letting his teammates down a little bit. He also said Drake had no idea he got ejected. Apparently, Drake after the game walked in the locker room and was like, "McCade, why are you all dressed and everything? Like, why are you in the locker room?" And McCade was like, you know, I mean, he did it for Drake, so I just thought that was kind of funny. But.
Yeah, it's a good thing overall, and the fact that it happened to Drake Stoops too, like that's. If the Oklahoma program could be summed up by one current player, it's Drake Stoops. Maybe one player over the past, like, decade, 20 years, it's Drake Stoops.
And that says something for your quarterback to immediately
absolutely
put his body at risk. But
Dylan's a little, like, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but he's, like, a little feistier this year. He's willing to, like, talk after the plays. He's John a little bit.
It started
like,
in the Iowa State game, remember when he had the little...
Well, even the way he runs, he's just running with more, like, physicality, more,
he doesn't
like...
slide, I'll tell you that.
No, definitely not.
He's going to have to... If he goes to the NFL, he's going to have to do that because, oh boy.
Let's talk about Brent Venables' press conference today. Guys, he obviously fielded a lot of questions about, and we'll get to this later on, about the coaching carousel, maybe some interest at some assistants on his staff, but he also just opened his press conference with total praise for both of the guys we've been talking about on offense, Dylan Gabriel and Drake Stoops. He loves to come out at the beginning of his press conferences and, you know, talk about the other team, but throughout, we like usual, we didn't really talk too much about BYU. You know, he glossed over a bunch of the awards that players are getting, but Lewis, what was your just overall feeling from Brent's press conference today?
Yeah, obviously the praise that he gave for Drake Stoops and Dylan Gabriel was the main thing. And he said it himself. He said, like, something like, I'm not one to give a bunch of fist bumps and, like, praisal and a bunch of bro hugs. But, I mean, Dylan Gabriel going into the top 10 of passing yards Saturday, that's huge, and Brent feels the
For a
need to address
career,
it. Yeah.
not this season. I mean,
I thought it was interesting,
nuts.
too, the jab that he took sort of at the media and at fans who have been criticizing Levy.
yeah.
He was like, yeah, well, Dylan will tell you, you know, the offensive coordinator putting you in good positions and sometimes overcoming the bad play calls.
That was like you
Yeah.
specifically.
Was it me?
I would love
It was a little bit of
whoever,
me.
if there is out there a transcription of that press conference, people who are reading that would take that in a totally different way and would like.
Well, he said it was said it was tongue in cheek afterwards, which I had to look up what that meant. I had no clue.
He tends to
completely
use
honest.
some of those old
You know
people
what
saying.
tongue in cheek means?
That's some old time Brent Venables coaching
That
lingo.
is.
I've never
I
heard
know
of
what
that.
tongue in cheek means. Anyways.
Let's get to probably the biggest story this week, so far anyway. And that was obviously with OU's big win on Saturday. Some Big 12 teams lost, including Kansas and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State got rocked by UCF. What was it, 45-3?
3.
Is that what the final was? Yeah. Tech went and beat Kansas. Jason Bean got hurt in that game. But that kind of set up a little interesting scenarios in the Big 12 standings. Obviously, Oklahoma has the 2 losses against Kansas and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has 2 losses as well, but also obviously you would think has the tiebreaker because they beat them. And then Texas is atop the standings with 1 loss. It got a little interesting, I think, on Saturday or Sunday when some people pointed out that, you know, Kansas State is also in that mix in the 3-way tie. And everybody, I think, just kind of figured OSU gets the tiebreaker out of all those 3 because they beat Kansas State and OU. But there's something in there that OU hasn't played Kansas State, so that would change something or something like that. Go look it up. Go use that website that's floating around.
We don't know.
Regardless, the message from both Brent and Dylan and players last night was pretty universal.
Yeah.
Control what you can control. Go out there and win. Keep winning, and things will take care of themselves. So, but I'm not going to speak on it because I have no idea what the scenarios are, what it means.
I tried looking at it last night, and it reminded me of being in, like, algebra class and, like, senior year of high school. I just was kind of, like, dazed looking around. Like, it makes no sense to me.
I saw an Excel spreadsheet on it, and I don't really do
What's the
Excel
website that's been
spreadsheets
blowing
anymore.
up? It's like .ball.nothing.net.
Lewis, not a spreadsheet guy.
I saw the guy tweet it. Some dude made this website, and I saw him tweet the other day. He was like, woke up to 40K page views. Not sure how this happened on his website that he made. But anyway, so lots to play for yet for OU possibly. Really what it boils down to is if you're an OU fan, root for Iowa State to beat Texas this weekend, and then you're in. Basically, is what that boils down to.
Basically,
but we mentioned the awards. Lewis, why don't you fill us in on all the awards from OU since you're writing about it today?
Oh God. All right. So Dylan Gabriel obviously got Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week, third time this season. He also got the Davey O'Brien co-national quarterback of the week. Drake Stoops got the Broyles Award. No, sorry.
Editors, no.
Jeff Levy, offensive coordinator. He got the Broyles Award.
He did not get the Broyles Award.
Sorry, he got.
He's one of 57 finalists or 6.
He's one of.
You're supposed to be the awards guy. What are you doing?
He's one of 57 finalists for the Broyles Award, top assistant coach in the nation.
I thought you said it wasn't the Broyles Award.
No, Jeff Levy, not Drake.
Drake Stoops.
Drake Stoops is Burlsworth.
All right, so we just made this whole thing like so much more confusing for everybody out there. Like even if somebody knew the awards going into this, they're now like,
just go read.
Bottom line, OU is good. And
Jeff Levy, Dylan
awards.
Gabriel, and Drake Stoops got awards.
Award for
I'm
best
tired of talking
award
about this.
tracker goes to Louis Raser.
Right. Let's talk a little coaching carousel. Obviously, some firings happened over the weekend. Texas A&M finally booted Jimbo Fisher, paid him $1 billion pretty much. I think it was $76 million buyout or something crazy like that.
I wish I had that money in
Mississippi
my pocket.
State, Zach Selman, former OU deputy athletic director, he's now the AD over there, fired Zach Arnett, who wasn't hired. I mean, he didn't hire him. Obviously, he just took over after Mike Leach's passing. But finally, Zach Silman gets to go out and pick his guy to lead that program and search for a head coach. But how does this tie into OU, you might ask? Well, number one, A&M has a bunch of recruits over there that OU was either a finalist for or, had interest in. So they could possibly be making a move after Jimbo's exit. But also, I was surprised to see this. I don't know about any of you guys, but Monday morning, Jeff Lebby's name was floating around for Mississippi State jobs.
I'm not surprised.
That kind of shocked me.
Yeah, definitely. And Brent Venables addressed it in his press conference, but he basically said, I mean, he was asked, like, what advice do you have to assistants who are getting interests in coaching jobs? And he basically said, like, hey, you're here for the season, like, focus on where you're at. And that's interesting, like, coming from him, because obviously he was defensive coordinator at Clemson, got hired 2021 to be at OU. But yeah, I mean, the Jimbo situation is just insane. The amount of money they're paying him.
I think the immediate name that comes to mind for OU fans is David Hicks, obviously, after everything that happened last year.
Yeah.
And McKinley, isn't it? That one guy.
Dominic McKinley has came out and said, I mean, he's 100% or 1,000% committed to A&M or whatever. But Hicks in the portal is the one that I would be looking at.
Yeah. Did he play at all this year? I didn't really keep track of him after.
I have no idea.
I'm not
If he
sure.
redshirt, that'd be crazy.
I don't know.
But
All I know
top
is
10 overall recruit, insane talent that OU was right there with last year.
Yeah.
Just didn't get him in the final moment.
all I
Him and
know.
David Stone coming in would be insane.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say is 3 best jobs in America: backup quarterback, bullpen catcher, and a fired head coach. That's
Well, Jimbo
'cause, I mean,
Fisher.
Yeah, exactly. A fired Texas
If I-
A&M head coach.
If I was
I wanna-
Jimbo Fisher, you would never hear from me or see me ever again.
I want to become like a head coach's accountant. Like, I bet they're getting paid a crap ton because you got to move investments here. You got to put something in the bank account here. Like, you can't just put all that first 19 million that you get. Like, they're probably getting paid like a good amount of that account. I'm just
Jackson Arnold will be redshirting. Did you hear that, Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brent Venables said after the game on Saturday that 5-star quarterback Jackson Arnold will
That's big.
be
for you.
redshirting the rest of the season. That obviously wasn't the plan going in.
I don't think it was.
But no, it wasn't. He said he wasn't going to redshirt
I know.
at the beginning of the year. But obviously, barring any injury to Dylan Gabriel, he'll be. He's played in 3 games, right? He can play in 1 more.
4.
He's appeared in 4, so he's done.
Yeah.
So he won't be seeing any more of Jackson Arnold this season.
Well, they said, like, unless, obviously,
yeah,
something
unless
happens,
Dylan Gabriel gets
right.
hurt. What do we make of that and his, the process of getting him ready for next season to, we think, be the starter and, compete in the SEC?
Pretty much nothing, other than, like, in the games that he did.
Analysis.
Award tracker with another friggin' great
Well,
analysis.
look, okay, in the games that he played, you would have liked to get him more time to prepare him there. But, like, redshirt, whether he redshirts or not, ideally, if Jackson Arnold is the Jackson Arnold we think, you don't really want him staying 4 years. Like, I mean, ideally, you would think that he comes out and he's a complete stud and he crushes it in the SEC, leads OU to a couple college football playoffs, maybe even a national championship. Like, that's the goal for Jackson Arnold. That's the expectation that he comes in with. He's not like a 4 or 5 year quarterback who you're just going to hang around and be kind of like not as an insult, but kind of like a Dylan Gabriel almost, where like he's
I
not
thought you were
like
about to
a
say Davis
stud.
Bevel.
He has NFL aspirations, and that's clear with somebody from his talent. But
Really don't want him to be a Davis Bevel.
The thing that I kind of just, whenever Brent said that, is if I was Jeff Lebby in OU, I would have liked to get him a little bit more game action, not just the Jackson Arnold package we saw where he runs it up the middle or whatever. I would have liked to see him, toss the ball a little around in those early games.
He did against Arkansas State.
I mean, yeah, Arkansas State.
Yeah,
but,
he
you know what I'm
tossed it.
saying. Like,
Go
when
read
he
my
gets in-
gamer. You can read all about it.
when he
from that
gets
game.
in with the Jackson Arnold package.
That's
Yeah.
that's what, like, that was my point. Like, you would rather have him
Yeah.
get better time in those 4 games rather than just like running twice and it's like
Yeah.
completely
I
pointless.
think that means one thing. I think that means we're probably going to see Dylan Gabriel in the bowl game because you can't play him. You can't play Jackson Arnold in the bowl game.
Well, depending on the bowl game, and that doesn't really mean that. I mean,
Really?
Dylan could opt out to train for
But
the
if-
draft. Or
But if he
anything
opts
wants,
out,
but-
then if Jackson plays, does he lose his red shirt then?
Yes, he will not play in the bowl game. He's redshirting.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So no
But
Jackson
that doesn't
Arnold
mean
in the
that
bowl game.
Dylan Gabriel's going to play in the bowl game.
Well, maybe Davis Bevel. That's something.
I would assume Dylan will play in the bowl game. But,
no slight to Davis Bevel.
we've mentioned Davis Bevel way too much on this podcast. Something I wanted to kind of throw out with all the praise Drake Stoops is getting. Obviously, he doesn't have any more eligibility remaining, and it's obviously going to be a big loss for OU. Yeah. I was just kind of curious. You're thinking around of like Julian Edelman, Sterling Shepard, Danny Amendola, those type of players. What kind of stock does Drake have in the NFL? I'm
thinking like 5th round, 6th round. I could see him going to like, I don't know, man. I could see him definitely going. I feel like the Patriots would love Drake Stoops. Like Bill Belichick would be like, "That's my guy," and just.
Patriots have certainly had players like that in the past.
Yeah, he's also like got really deceptive speed. I could be seeing him like as a gadget guy in like a Sean McVay offense or like a Kyle Shanahan offense, even like. I don't know. Maybe he's like a slot guy. He's really a reliable slot guy.
Like a Cooper Kupp.
Yeah. I'm curious what Drake Stoops' 40 time is. I think it's probably I would assume it's probably 4 or 5. I think that gets him in the league.
Definitely. I think he's got a chance at like some of those later, like you were saying, 5 through 7. I mean, it's always so hard to judge even when guys are projected then because like anything could happen earlier on.
Yeah, even then, I think he like probably ends up on a practice squad for a bit or something like that. Like I think he's an NFL talent, especially with what he's shown this year.
Mr. Reliable.
I think so too, yeah. And all the praise that he gets just for like the off-field stuff, the leadership, everything. Yeah. He's a guy you want in your locker room, according to literally all of his teammates and Brent Venables, certainly.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. Let's get to predictions. OU plays BYU at 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. local time.
Have
it
fun
is the
waking up,
earliest kickoff time in OU history, according to Mike Houck of OU Athletics. I'll be there in Provo along with the photographer Olivia, and it's gonna be a fun time. Looks like a beautiful stadium, beautiful college town. So excited to get out there, have coverage for you guys on OUDaily.com. But let's predict the game, Lewis. I will try not to steal your score prediction. This week.
Always steal my score for the game. Last week.
Well, you do, and that's why I had everybody like write it down beforehand because none of that. God. But mine was actually like a lot different than yours. So I'm going OU 24, BYU 13.
24.
Yeah,
it says right here 27.
Well, I changed
Mr.
it.
Broyles Award.
I think Broyles Award nominee Jeff Lebby struggles a little bit here, right?
Mm-hmm. You're correct.
Yeah.
That was correctly put.
Tough place to play. It's a tough place to play in Provo. 10 a.m. Like that sucks. Even though Brent Venables said like that's great, and I even asked Woody Washington if he'd prefer that or a night game. He said like honestly probably a morning game.
Yeah, I think the consensus from Brent and most of the players, shockingly to me, is they don't like waiting around for the game. They just want to get up and play.
I mean, it probably adds emphasis to it because they literally play on Friday the next week. So, like, they have a short week. Why not just want to get out of there? That's my thought.
Yeah.
If I'm a player, I'm like, I want to get out of there. I'm like, it's Thanksgiving week next week.
Get there quick, win a game, get out.
Turkey. I want to get home early.
Okay. So, I'm going 24-13 OU. This gives me, like, OU Cincinnati vibes. Like, tough place to play. Don't think the offense does anything crazy here. But I think the defense will step up. And I don't see BYU doing a ton against OU's defense.
I would agree. I don't see BYU doing a ton at all.
Yeah.
I think OU's going to go in, quick trip, like Jason said, get in there, get a quick dub, get out. I see the offense having success like they did against West Virginia. I could see them piling some points up. I'm going to go OU 45, BYU 10. I watched, who was that played them last 2 weeks ago? Was it Kansas that just killed BYU?
No, Absolutely. They played them the first.
Or West Virginia? West Virginia that just killed BYU. I watched a little bit of that game. BYU did not look good at all. I know they've had some injuries and stuff as well, but for BYU, I do think a couple keys that I think could make it close is I would pass on OU if I was them. If you have Keaton Slovis, I would go out there and we've seen OU's secondary, and Brent Venables said a couple weeks ago that was his main concern. I would go out and attack OU's secondary. Obviously, they lead into the nation in picks, so don't be too careless about it. But I would attack them there, and then I would force OU to make some special teams mistakes. We've seen that in the past this season.
And I think really the key is kind of the turnover differential, because we've seen OU, like, they're going to get yards on you on offense. They're really, really high in yards, whether it be the Big 12 or the nation. They're highly ranked. The problem for them against Oklahoma State and Kansas, and Brent Venables and everybody said this, was untimely turnovers. They turn the ball over at dumb moments, and it bites them in the ass.
BYU can take advantage of. If I was BYU also, we've seen OU struggle in these high-octane environments, including Cincinnati on the road. Cincinnati's not a good team, and OU only won, 20-6 or something?
Right. 20-9, I think.
Or 20, yeah,
no,
something
20-6.
Right.
And
then, obviously, in Stillwater, I think if BYU could take advantage of these smaller stadiums, get loud, it's going to be 10 a.m. local time. It could be recipe for disaster, like you're predicting, but I think OU goes out there and just puts it all together. I think the offense, picks up where they left off last week against West Virginia, and I think it's a blowout.
Yeah. If I'm being honest, I think OU wins this game pretty handily. And then,
well, what a bold take that was.
I mean, I don't know, man. It just feels like they've learned their lessons, and they're just like, okay, we're just going to sweep the floor the rest of the season. I'm going OU 31-17. Not doing some weird stuff like Lewis, changing up the score midway through. Tricked me. But in a real note, I think OU's offense will carry over some of the things that they do against West Virginia. I don't think it's a full-on blowout like it was West Virginia, but I think they win pretty handedly. I think Dylan Gabriel has another pretty stellar game. I think Gavin Sawchuk gets going, Nick Anderson, Drake Stoops. The standard four, I guess you could say. They have OU's fantastic four, per se. The core four. Mr. Reliable. And what would Drake Stoops be in your mind? The Broyles, Mr. Broyle. I don't know what I'm
Burlsworth.
saying. Oh, Burlsworth. Yeah. But yeah, I think BYU probably gets some Candyland touchdowns.
I think he mentions Candyland every podcast.
I mentioned it the first time, and then he's mentioned it every single time.
I really like that word, Candyland touchdown. It just seems so cool.
Not a word, it's a game.
Okay, whatever. I really like that phrase.
Are you done with your prediction?
Yes.
I think you're right. I think Brent Venables is in the locker room right now saying, okay, we're just going to sweep the floor with him.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're all pretty consensus on
I think we're all tired of each other.
And
I'm tired of Lewis.
Anyway.
Not you, Colton. You're my best buddy.
For predictions, I think me and Jason are leaning a little bit more on handedly. Well, you have a two-score game. So I think you and Lewis actually are together on this.
Lewis is going to say I stole his prediction again.
But I think I have OU winning 35 points. So, but we'll see. Somebody got really close to the right prediction last week. I think it was you.
It was me. I predicted
49-20, and it was 59-20.
It was like 43-20. I think I had
something.
Yeah, I was like, I think they just scorch earth. Y'all predicted a close game. I was like, no shot under the lights.
Well, we'll see if Jason's right again. Louis Raser, Jason Batacao, Colton Sulley. Follow us on social media. We are on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Keep up with our personal threads. We're on threads.
Yeah.
OUdaily.com is the best place to find all of our stuff. Keep up with us this week, rest of the week. We're going to have some cool midweek stories in the works. And, of course, on game day, Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time. So, yeah, guys, good podding, and we'll see you next week.